Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you back, or for the first time, to We'll Bring the Popcorn, your favorite film and TV podcast.
On today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the new comedy film The Naked Gun, as well as the animated sequel Bad Guys 2.
So kicking off our news discussion this week, we've got Gremlins 3 is getting closer to being made. It's actually being held up by Steven Spielberg. They're waiting for his approval of the script before they move forward with it. But Warner Brothers is looking like they're really excited about doing another one, even though it's been 35 years since the last live-action film. Of course, we got the 2 seasons of the animated special, or series that was, 2023 and 2024. Yeah. Even though they gave them 2 different names, which is a little weird, because in a way, I think the first one was first season was a prequel, and then the second one was like a prequel to that prequel. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense they got a different name. But yeah, Steven Spielberg's what's holding up Gremlins 3 right now.
Crazy that that's getting made. That's a thing. Like, it's been so long since it's come out. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do, what the script looks like, who's gonna be in it. They're making it talk like some of the original cast members are gonna come back for it. Obviously, you would want Howie Mandel to be back as Gizmo, and or maybe you do it. Let's throw your name into the hat. But yeah, Steven Spielberg holding it up. Not surprising. I mean, that's a busy man already, but you got to figure at some point that's going to get the green light and probably start filming, if I were to guess, next year at some point. Like, crazy that it's been 35 years since the sequel came out, like the second film. Like, it's just crazy how fast time goes by, but I have no clue what they're going to do, what they're going to do with this. Are
you really certain that Gremlins has an appeal nowadays? Because, I mean, sure, they know from the animated series that it's done well and it was well received, but doing animation can be a lot different than doing another live action, especially are they going to CG it up, or are they going to stick to the practical puppetry and stuff with it? Like, you don't know exactly how they're going to approach that. And the Gremlins series has always been weird because, I mean, we watch it as kids, but they were horror movies. Yeah. Like, the first Gremlins movie was PG because PG-13 didn't exist. It was actually because of it and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. 1 month after Gremlins came out is when they started PG-13. So it's like, because of those movies, like, we need another age rank here for these movies, because I went back to watch them. Like, I hadn't shown my girls it all yet. And I'm like, well, the first one's PG, but I remember scaring the crap out of me as a kid. Like, it was horror. I think it was funny and cute, but I remember, like, it freaking me out as a kid. I'm like, how was that PG?
Yeah. It's crazy to go back and look at some of those films that are rated that would be ranked completely different today. But just goes to show how different the times were and how cognizant we were of, appropriate content and all that stuff, and a proper rating for a film like that. But yeah, man, I need to go back and watch those. It's been forever since I've watched anything Gremlin related. I haven't watched either of the seasons of the animated series.
I haven't either.
Haven't touched it at all, but I can say it's probably been since the 90s that I've seen any Gremlins related
Probably
content.
The same, yeah.
Yeah, like it's just one of those films that I remember enjoying when I was younger, but it's never one that I've had a strong nostalgic feeling for. But it's good to hear that the animated series that they've come out with have been well received. I know people really like those movies, and I still hear people throw out the lines like, can't feed a gremlin after midnight kind of thing or whatever, but like you still hear that floated around.
I make those jokes about my kids.
You absolutely make those jokes about your kids, and it's pretty funny considering how knowing them. But it's just one of those things, like, will it work? I don't know, but it looks like they're going forward with it.
I just hope it's not just replace it all with CG. You need the puppetry. That's kind of what made Gizmo and the Gremlins special, was they were practical and they looked real. I actually saw a clip of, there was a movie theater somewhere that did a special screening of Gremlins, and the film like tore away on screen, and you hear screaming, you look back in the projection booth, and they're the people are being holding up gremlin dolls and getting attacked, and then they go down below and have the gremlins dancing. So they went like all out for a gremlin showing, which was amazing. We need a theater to kind of do that around here, because I would be all in for doing stuff like that. But
that'd be fun.
Yeah, it's like I haven't watched it in a while. I do have a big stuffed Gizmo in my office that's right next to my 8-bit Link holding a Triforce pillow. Like, I've got that in my office, but yeah, it's probably been 20 plus, if not 30 years since I've watched anything Gremlins related.
That's crazy, but who knows? We'll see what we'll see how that film does when it gets made and when it comes out. I do want to pivot now to talk about the X-Men, which is another, like, the next big step that Marvel's going to take after we get through this, Secret Wars, Doomsday plot that we're getting to, and we're getting to get paid off, and we're looking towards the future and what the X-Men are going to do. And we've had Jake Schreier, who directed Thunderbolts, is going to be, taking the helm for the X-Men movie, and he's talked a little bit about how much he wants to take the X-Men in kind of a different direction for them, and dealing more with, like, you could sense a theme in the type of Marvel movies that he wants to make, because obviously Thunderbolts dealt very strongly with mental health and, things like that. And it seems like it's going to be the kind of the central theme for the X-Men as well, struggling with their identity and their place in the world, and, just kind of kicking off that as a theme around the X-Men. And I'm interested to see how well that's going to do.
Well, after watching Thunderbolts, I think he was a very smart choice to do X-Men, because the X-Men are complicated. They're layered. You're dealing with social acceptance and acceptance of yourself and fitting in and being yourself, and there is a lot of complexity behind it, and the messages and the stories that X-Men do. And yeah, Thunderbolts was very layered with that. So even though Thunderbolts fell off and didn't do as well financially as they thought it would, Fantastic Four is kind of heading that same way. Thinks that there might be a bit of a lull and people just not caring about Marvel right now, because they did have that streak of where then they admitted that they were just pumping out stuff instead of worrying about quality. They were worrying about quantity, and some of the more fair weather fans are not coming back to it, and they're not really looking like they're bringing new fans in yet. So it's going to be really interesting to see past what he's saying with wanting to do the complexity of the X-Men and stuff, what Marvel or Disney sees that they need to do with X-Men to maybe bring stuff back. You figure Doomsday, because it's an Avengers film, is going to do well, and Secret Wars is going to do well. You figure Spider-Man 4 is going to do well. Yeah. But those kind of new ones, even though we had the Fox X-Men series, and that's what he's like, it's going to be quite a lot different than the Fox X-Men. How do they do X-Men that kind of brings people back to Marvel? Like, we loved them doing X-Men 97, and we've been waiting patiently for season 2 to finally come out that we're going to get next year. But that did very well on its own. It was streaming and stuff, but it's been a long time since we've really had the mutants, the full X-Men out there. And, of course, we're getting cameos. We got Deadpool and Wolverine cameos. We got cameos coming up, and Doomsday and Secret Wars and stuff. But yeah, how they really kick off the mutant saga like this is probably one of the past Fantastic Four here, moving into Doomsday and Secret Wars. X-Men's going to be very huge to kicking off the mutant saga, which is their next phase.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it. You kind of, I hate to say it, but it feels like some of these characters and stories that they've taken a little bit of a leap on is really having a difficult time drawing in casual fans. Mm-hmm. Like, there aren't hardcore comic fans. Like, there's nobody that I've spoken to that's like a big comic book person that says they didn't enjoy the Fantastic Four, that know who the Fantastic Four are. But when you're dealing with a wider audience trying to draw them into a comic book movie, they're not they haven't gone to that well of characters like all that often lately with, these stories that are, appealing to mass people. Like Spider-Man, licensed to print $1 billion. That next Spider-Man film is going to do gangbusters at the box office. Like you said, Avengers, it's a brand. It's a well-known brand that's going to make a lot of money. And it's like betting on these newer characters that are newer in the sense of film that, casual fans will be drawn to. X-Men might be the one that they need to get right to kind of draw people back in and be that well-known entity that can draw like a bigger audience back, that can get, them back on that upswing, because there are properties that Marvel puts out still that do really well. Mm-hmm. Some of these other fringe characters, which Guardians of the Galaxy just way over, I use them as an example because they're one that far exceeded any expectations that anybody had for them. They haven't really struck gold with that since. Yeah. Like some of these fringe characters that aren't as well known, or the higher consciousness popularity wise as far as films go. And we've seen that in the box office returns. So maybe X-Men will be the one that kind of helps bring that back. I don't know.
Yeah, because if you look at Marvel, I mean, when people think of Marvel, you're thinking Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and for many, X-Men. So that's kind of the three big pillars of Marvel is these franchises. And you do have, even with Fantastic Four, you have people might be a little gun-shy because of the two Fox Fantastic Four, then the reboot that they did with Dark and Gritty that no one really cared for, and then the Fox X-Men. it started off pretty strong, but then you had Dark Phoenix that people didn't care for. You had Apocalypse that people didn't care for. Sure. So you had that kind of went out with a whimper with Fox. Both of them went out with a whimper. Some people are going to be, especially the more casuals who may not be, huge comic fans. Well, I saw that old Fox one. I didn't care for it, so I'm not really going to go back to this one. It could be the same thing for X-Men. Well, I saw Apocalypse and they didn't do that very good, or Dark Phoenix didn't do very good, and I may not be interested. So there is a lot riding, kind of almost like Superman with DC here. That one's going to be a giant pillar tentpole thing for them because they're going all in on mutants after this. So it's going to be interesting because they also said they're going to do younger cast as well, like less unknown or less known, more unknown, to not they said to cut on cost, but it's also, you're thinking long term of how long the X-Men's going to be around. You need a young cast, and if you have too many big known names, it will get very expensive. They've already learned that from Robert Downey Jr. He's made $600 million off of his stuff from the MCU so far. So well, we don't want to pay everybody $600 million because they've talked about Taron Egerton was talking to Kevin Feige about being Cyclops at one point, and you've had many names thrown out for Professor X of big kind of actor names and stuff as well. So it's going to be interesting if they do a smaller, more unknown cast and keep it, because they're supposed to be teenagers, but they rarely in live action here ever looked anywhere close to a teenager. Some of them, Wolverine's always, since he's ancient, but we didn't really get that. So it's kind of hard to get the teenagers that look like teenagers without making them look like they're 10.
Right. Yeah. And that's a balance they got to walk. And, it's a formula that's worked for Marvel before. Mm-hmm. You got to go back to the early days of the MCU here. Robert Downey Jr. was a name, but he was a fledgling star at best. With his legal troubles and his drug battles and things like that, he was a big risk for Marvel to take. He wound up being a home run, but a lot of these guys that are A-list names now weren't exactly A-list names when they got hired.
Hugh was not an A-list name when he got hired for X-Men. Sure. He barely got that job.
Sure, and then you have the Marvel tentpole people. Scarlet is probably the most high profile of the ones that they signed at the time that they signed him, because Chris Hemsworth wasn't a big household name at the time. Chris Evans wasn't a big... He had done some movies, but he wasn't a huge A-list star at that point. He was probably a C-list, actor at that point, and now he's an A-list actor. They're good at making lesser-known talents superstars, and I think they need to get back to that roots too, and not necessarily go to the well of, we're getting... we talked about getting Ryan Gosling for Ghost Rider or something like that, and while that's great, but maybe take a chance on an unknown guy and have him really break out and, get that bigger return on your investment kind of thing.
Worked for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because that's one of the favorite Ghost Riders was from that series. They were actually still calling for him to come back to be Ghost Rider.
Sure, and he was fantastic in that too. But that seems to be a formula that's worked for him before, and if they can get back to that, maybe they got something going. So
Tom Holland was relatively unknown when he became Spider-Man because he was still really young. He was the teenager that they hired to be Spider-Man. So it's going to be really interesting to see who gets cast and where we go. You also had some of those misses where you had Anya Taylor-Joy in the New Mutants, where she was great in that, but it wasn't a good movie. But that was right on the cusp of her becoming a big star, and you could have had a lot of mutant fun with her. But since that movie bombed and did so badly, we'll probably never see her again as a mutant because she's doing fantastic with everything else. But there's a lot of kind of relatively unknowns that have started out in it, so that could be spawning a bunch of new movie stars after that, because that's your first movie or second movie or something is X-Men. That's going to be pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a good way to build a resume very quickly.
Yeah, so I want to move on. We've got a lot of Avatar stuff going on, so not only the confusing part of having James Cameron's Avatar running, but we have Avatar The Last Airbender is doing a bunch of stuff. We got season 2 of the live-action series is... I believe done filming, and so we're looking, I think, 2026 to get that. I don't think it got a date this year yet, but they've got a lot of animated projects on. They did announce, which he has voiced a character in. He's played an older Avatar before, Stephen Yeun, is now going to kind of take over Zuko. He's going to play an adult, older Prince Zuko in the Legend of Aang, the Last Airbender animated movie. We didn't really get a word why Dante Basco did not come back. He still does, even at his age, have a younger voice. He could probably do a good, but a lot of people that I've seen online after this was like, well, yeah, his voice still sounds younger, but I mean, he can play the older, but they went with Steven Yeun, who's shown from Invincible and everything else. He can do great voice work, but it's really interesting they decided to kind of recast for that, even though they've been using and bringing back previous voice actors. But it's also Steven Yeun's name has become, pretty big from The Walking Dead, from Invincible. He's done quite a lot of films and stuff now. He was supposed to be in Thunderbolts, but he had to drop out, which he says he still kicks himself about, that he had to drop out for another role that he really would have loved to play Sentry. So maybe it was just more about trying to get a big name in there to entice people. But like I said, I forget the name of the Avatar he played before, but he has voiced an Avatar before in there. So now he's going from an Avatar to Prince Zuko.
Yeah, I mean, we got Bob, so I'm happy with Bob and Thunderbolts. But yeah, like, I could see why there's some people frustrated that Dante Basco doesn't get back as Zuko. In my opinion, on that show, which, if you haven't watched the animated Avatar: The Last Airbender from Nickelodeon, go back and rewatch it. Even now, it still holds up really well. It's one of my favorite animated series of all time. It's really good. It's only 3 seasons long, but it packs such a punch. Like, it's so good to watch and go back and, kind of relive that and do it again. But in my opinion, Zuko was the most interesting character on that show. Like, he had an incredible story arc throughout that entire show, going from being like the main villain to kind of an anti-hero by the end of it, and a really well-loved character, and getting an actor like Steven Yeun to come back and do the voice for the next iteration of it. I don't hate it. I wish they would have given Dante Basco a chance, but Steven Yeun's a fantastic voice actor too, and a big name to attach to a project to give it some visibility. So I'm excited to see what they do with it, and I'm excited to see the story that they tell here, going back to, Aang, because they're doing, they've done The Legend of Korra, they're doing a follow-on series beyond that that's going to be coming out at some point as well. So lots of stories to dig into from the Avatar series, and I'm here for it. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you got to see at San Diego Comic-Con. They actually did a table read with a lot of the original cast doing a scene from the Avatar series, and they all sounded great still. And it's so crazy to see also just how they fall into voices. So it seems effortless. Like, some of them are close to their actual speaking voice, and they alter and change from that a little bit. But that was really fun to see them after so long come back and do a table read of one of their funny scenes and entertaining scenes. But yeah, hopefully maybe we'll get Dante to pop back up as a different character, because I think he did return as a different character as well himself in one of the Avatar Last Airbender projects, but I forget who he voiced, but he played his I believe it was in Korra. He played like Zuko's grandson or something like that, and he did a little bit different voice for that. But they've used him, but it's nice when you have something that is a legacy product that you're still able to include those that helped it become what it was and keep them around, especially if they're still able to. I mean, look at Peter Cullen. How long has he been doing Optimus Prime for? Because, I mean, I enjoyed Chris Hemsworth in Transformers 1. I wish that would got a sequel. It sounds like the sequel to that's kind of dead in the water. I feel like he did fine, but that's another, voice that was really hard. Peter Cullen is Optimus Prime. That's Optimus Prime. Dante is Zuko. He's also Rufio to a lot of us, but he's Zuko.
Yeah, and we'll see how that project turns out for sure. I'm excited to see what they come up with, and when it comes out, I'll be excited to talk about it for sure. And we'll talk about it more as we get more information around it. But I want to pivot us now to talk about one of my favorite video game series of all time, and that's God of War. It is getting a new series. We got a little bit more information about it. Season 1's going to be about 10 episodes long. The scripts are still being written, but it's going to take adaptation from the Norse era games. So you're going to get Kratos, you're going to get Atreus here. The guy, Corey Barlog, who's the director of the games, is going to be involved in it. And I know you and I kind of had a little bit of mixed feelings given how involved the creators of The Last of Us were involved in their show, but it's going to be interesting to see what his take on this in a series type of environment is going to be.
Yeah, I'm slightly disappointed in that. I enjoyed the Norse era. Like the newest two games here have been a lot of fun. They're beautiful to look at and stuff. But it's definitely a different Kratos. You've got an older who's a father who lost his wife, who's going through stuff, but it's more about the dad teaching his son and going through that, while the Greek was learning how Kratos was this war general, and he made a deal to be able, because he was losing, and he ended up losing his family, and there was a lot of torment and torture and pain in the character, and a lot more fighting with gods with being bigger, and there's fighting with gods in the Norse era and stuff too, but that was a very dark and gritty and everything with that, and I would have loved to see kind of that go into it. You could do a season or two of that, or maybe one season of that, and do the second season pick up with, like, you could probably combine those first three games of the Greek era into one. You would have to cut out quite a bit, but you could probably make it work as one season, and then do the Norse as like the second season or something. But I don't hate it, because I do enjoy the Norse era a lot, but I was really hoping that we were going to start off by seeing the more brutal Kratos from the Greek era.
Sure, and those games are just absolutely brilliant, and I wish they would have gone to that well too. But I'm interested to see where they kind of take off with this, because there's some good quality stories you can tell with that for sure, and I'm excited to see it, because like I said, I love the games. I've been obsessed with them as well. Truth be told, I took time off of work when Ragnarok came out so I could play it. Like, I took a day off to play the game, so like, I was super excited when that came out and put a bunch of time into it, and I'm excited to see what they do with the series, because there's some really fun stories that they can dive into here. But we'll see what we get with the older Kratos. I have a feeling it's getting that adaptation because of how popular the last two games have been.
Just trying to keep it relative to what's popular now.
And I get it, and that's probably a smart move, but we'll see. I don't know. Like, we still don't know who all is going to be attached to that project yet, and time will tell. So I'm excited to see what they put together, and hopefully, with the creative directors of the games being involved, it gets a little bit better than what we got from season 2 of The Last of Us, obviously. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Kratos is going to be one that's going to be hard to cast in live action, because he is a physically imposing figure, very ripped and in shape. You've got the big bushy beard, but you also have a lot of depth with the acting and stuff too. So it's not saying that people who are big and bulky and muscle bound can't act, but your mind first goes to wrestlers, it goes to bodybuilder. You're trying to find someone who can fit that physically, but also get the deep, gravelly voice that's, Kratos, and that can do the emotions, because it is a very tortured character that's can have a lot of emotional depth of what he's gone through in his life. And I figured maybe we'll get flashbacks that take us back to the Greek era that shows him maybe being tortured by his past to figure out how he teaches his son in the future or something like that. But it's going to be really, of course, us being older, like Triple H has popped up, and you've had like Jason Momoa, and you've had all that. Like, give me Stone Cold Steve Austin as Kratos. That'd be a ton of fun. Give Thor a stunner, and but it's when you're trying to figure out someone who could act to do it, it's going to be, I think, difficult to find a very tall, big guy who can act, who can do action, but who can also do the drama and stuff. We don't have that many who can kind of balance both really well.
One of my favorite things about Kratos, the character, is when you see who voices the character in the games, looks absolutely nothing like you would suspect. And I love that so much. Like, the guy that does the voice of Kratos looks absolutely nothing like he would in
we've had a couple voices now. The latest guy, he was what I just remember from Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, and it's just brilliant, and I love it. And I'm excited to see what they do, because like I said, it's one of my favorite games. I hope they do it right, and nailing that role of Kratos is going to be very important, and I can't think off the top of my brain who would be the best fit for it, and they're going to have to get that casting right.
They also have to do a lot of CG and body paint stuff, because his complexion is more pale and white through it all, but you have his, the Chaos Blades and stuff that are on chains and that he can throw and can do everything with, depending if they go with the axe or something else and they use that, but the creatures and everything he fights, like, it's going to be an expensive CG heavy show because of the setting and the monsters and the action is very over the top and huge and big, and it's going to require a lot of CG. So hopefully more than anything with the casting, you got to get a good CG company in there to do that right, or it's just going to look ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
That's got to be tough too. Like, you look at the behind the scenes of these Marvel and DC and stuff of when they're using their powers, and they look ridiculous. Like, Kratos is going to look ridiculous when he's out there, because if you're pretending you're throwing blades and throwing things around like that, you're just going to be waving your hands around and looking quite silly as well. So it's going to take someone who can take looking silly before the CG's put in.
Yeah, and it's just going to be crucial that they get the right person involved in it. And I'm excited to see who they wind up casting, because I think it's going to be somebody nobody's really expecting to get it, and I'll be curious to see who that is.
Mr. Bean.
Let's do it. Why not?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So the last story I want to talk about, my kids are absolutely obsessed, but a lot of people are obsessed with, is K-pop Demon Hunters on Netflix. I don't think they expected it to be even close to what it got. Like, it is exploded. It is, I believe, Netflix's most popular, highest viewed animated film of all time. It is just going crazy. They're looking at doing 2 animated sequels and potentially doing a live action version of it as well to capitalize. I know live action could be kind of interesting, would hopefully maybe, because a lot of the cast here were a little bit more unknown. And I know there was a story that I had seen that one of the guys in the boy group of it, which I've watched bits and pieces of it. I haven't watched the whole film. My kids have watched it about 30 times. I've caught the beginning, middle, and end, but I haven't watched it all the way through with them yet. But one of the guys apparently his music career wasn't going that well in Korea, and he came to America and he found this and did it, and it's 200 times the amount of downloads and plays on his music now compared to before, because it's 250 million plus plays for the album. It's destroyed the charts.
Yeah, it is an absolute pop culture juggernaut right now. A lot of people I know have watched it several times. I've watched it a couple times. It's fantastic. The music is incredible. The story is really good in the movie too, but the music, this is a case of good music making a good film great. Mm-hmm. And that's very much the case here. The music is absolutely phenomenal in this movie. Just so many good songs in it. Golden obviously is one of the big songs from it. It's doing incredibly well. The soundtrack's hit #1 on the charts. It's done just absolute gangbusters. I'm not surprised to hear that they're following up with it, because just of how huge it's become in such a short amount of time, because it hasn't been out very long. But man, it's still up there for most viewed every single week, and it's one of that people can go back and rewatch, and you find something different each time that you like about it more. And just absolute S-tier soundtrack musically is phenomenal, and I'm so happy to see that it's doing well, because it's a really well told story, and it's one that has become a very pleasant surprise hit that may wind up on my favorite movie list at the end of the year, just because of the incredible soundtrack that goes along with it. It's probably going to make my list at the end of the year, and I'm very happy that that's the case.
Yeah, you love to see an original film and original soundtrack doing so well, because it's a new franchise now, but it wasn't something from an established. And every time we leave the house, we just went on vacation and we're driving 3 to 4 hours down and back to where we were and everything. K-pop Demon Hunters was on most of the time as we traveled. We did school shopping this weekend and stuff too. K-pop Demon Hunters was there. I've heard Soda Pop so many times, it's stuck in my head. And but it does have some great songs. It has some emotional songs that and there's some that it really shows off just how good of singers they are, because there's some really hard songs that they sing in there. But it's a unique and interesting story to it too. So it's great. To show with my oldest daughter, go out to stores and shopping, she's trying to look where's merchandise, where's stuffies or toys, or where's this or that, when are they going to add them to Fortnite, when are they going to do this. She is craving for more of it, and you figure that's one thing Netflix got to be looking at. All right, where's our merchandise, because they didn't expect this to do as well as it did, so they've got to now catch up to like, all right, well, we need to throw out some merchandise. We need to get them in Fortnite. We need to do this. We need to do that. Like they've potentially got a big new franchise. But the thing you've got to be careful about is that they're not going to just try to pump out as much as possible. And then what made this one special is just lost in pumping out sequels that, well, the script was written in a week and we animated it in like 6 months using AI or something. Like, hopefully they don't go that route, and the teams who made this gets a proper chance to make these sequels.
Yeah, for sure. And you worry about that with anything that's successful, obviously, because the running gag with Hollywood now is nothing's original anymore, and nothing's like, people just aren't caring about new properties. And while it's a fair argument, this is proving that's not necessarily the case when you have the right formula. And I'm so happy that, people are finding something like this and it's taken off as it has, because one, it's a really good movie, really well done. Animation on it's really cool. The music is incredible in it, and it just elevates it that much more. And I love when those two marry each other into something that's really cool and really special. And I'm more than happy for the success that it's gotten, and hopefully they can keep up with the demand of it while not sacrificing the quality that the first one has, which is a tough balance to get already, but we'll see what they do with the follow-up for sure.
Yeah, you said it's hopefully that they just don't, well, let's go back to the original creators, tell them this is what we want. Well, if they don't like that, we're just going to get a new team and do it, because you don't know what kind of rights or anything else they have with it being a smaller property. You want the creatives that were able to create something so spectacular to be able to have their due right to create a proper sequel that they feel good about and that they can move forward with. Because it is like with anything popular, because a lot of times you've seen with Kung Fu Panda and other things, they get the movie franchise going, but then they'll do series that are, lower budget, different animation style, different voice actors and stuff, and it's not as successful. And you figure that's probably going to happen to this at some point, that they'll try to crank out a cheap like series or something that'll take them younger or older or a new group or something like that. Because like I said, yeah, when it comes, something becomes popular, they hook into that and want to crank out as much as humanly possible. And they already announced 3 projects, so that kind of feels like what they're doing.
Could be.
Just hope the quality is still there for the fans and for everybody else, because like you said, it's going to be one of the top and favorite soundtracks of the year, because it's that catchy and popular and stuff. And you've got to not only get a fun story, but you got to get a good soundtrack to follow up with. And we've seen a few movies lately that have gotten sequels that the second movie soundtrack was nowhere near the quality that the first one was.
When you catch lightning in a bottle like that, it's hard to strike twice. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be interesting to see how they follow up on it for sure. But so happy for the success of that. It's an amazing movie. If you haven't checked it out, go on Netflix and watch it now. It's so freaking good, man. You'll be hooked in on the music too, because I've noticed some people that have watched it that aren't necessarily anime fans that have gotten into it and they fell in love with it. So it could be an avenue for people to kind of go down the rabbit hole of finding a whole new subgenre of, entertainment that they may not be as familiar with, that they're willing to give a chance to. And that's kind of what you want to see from properties like that anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, not only just film or TV wise, but for music wise. K-pop is a huge genre that hasn't as much been as popular here in the States. You've got a few bands that are. This could also be another way that brings mega popularity to K-pop over here, because it's got this kind of gateway to, all right, well, let's look at BTS, let's look at Blackpink, and look at all those, and even probably not as much baby metal. I'm kind of putting the Asian influence and stuff of music, but it'll get people exploring like they will with anime to figure out different movies or series they might like. They're going to start exploring the music and the genres of other countries and cultures and stuff, kind of like how this blends, with the Korean culture with American culture and stuff like that. You're going to see people exploring that.
I love that, and I'm looking forward to whatever they follow up with for sure. I want to move us now into our film review of the week, our first film, which is The Naked Gun. So this is the technically, if you want to call it the 4th movie in this. This is kind of a significantly further down the line sequel, obviously, from the first 3 trio of, Naked Gun films starring the passing of Leslie Nielsen as, Frank Drebin in those incredibly funny original Naked Gun films. You have Liam Neeson playing Frank Drebin Jr. in this. and obviously Pamela Anderson stars in this as well. And I gotta preface this by saying I was going into this film with the absolute lowest of expectations, and I want to say that because when I get to how I feel about this film, you'll see why I feel as strongly as I do about this film. When I saw that it was Seth MacFarlane that was kind of helming this film and kind of really helping put it together, I had a lot of caution around it because while, in my opinion, like the first several seasons of Family Guy are some of my favorite like animated comedy humor type writing, it's fallen off drastically in quality in my opinion. And a lot of the stuff I've seen lately from Seth MacFarlane hasn't hit like it used to. So I was a little concerned like this is going to be kind of a dumb comedy that's just going to be pretty cringy and not funny. Even from the trailer itself, I was like, this looks like it might be a really bad movie. I say that to say, having seen this movie now, I don't recall a time of me audibly laughing as hard as I have at a movie like this in a long time. This movie is so freaking funny, hysterically funny, that I was laughing. Sometimes I forgot I was in a theater. I was laughing as loud as I did, and I don't find myself doing that very often anymore. And it's so freaking good, man. I was genuinely shocked at how good. Like, don't get me wrong, as a whole, it's not a cinematic masterpiece at all, but for a comedy, absolutely brilliant and what we needed.
Yeah, I came in with similar expectations. Like, I wasn't expecting a lot. Like, Seth MacFarlane has been very hit or miss. He does go very crass with a lot of the humor and stuff he does. And you're doing it with Liam Neeson, that you're like, okay, he's done some comedic stuff, and he also has done some comedic stuff with Seth as well. But it's like he hasn't really led a comedy film. And you're like, all right, how is he gonna do with leading comedy? And he was fantastic in it. Like, I hold the Naked Gun films in high regard as just so much fun. Like, Leslie Nielsen was a master of the kind of deadpan, straight-faced comedy. Like, he was so good in The Airplanes and with the Naked Guns and everything he did, because he could look you square in the eye, as serious as it could be, and say the most ridiculous things that come out of his mouth and never crack a smile, never break. And he was so funny, and it's like, well, you're trying to take his stuff and redo it. This version of Naked Gun, it's a love letter to those spoof parody comedies to the original Naked Guns. There's a lot of care to doing some throwbacks and paying respects to the Naked Gun while also letting it be itself and doing its own gags and stuff. But it's a love letter. It's hey, we love this type of spoof comedy film. We want to do another one. We're going to pay some great... I felt like they paid great respect to it. And I do want to touch on one thing, because when we're filming this, last night was the Reds and Braves game at the Bristol Motor Speedway, and they had a special opening with Liam Neeson doing a bit and a gag. And of course it was promoting the Naked Gun, but if anybody knows Leslie Nielsen and knows the bits and stuff he's done, he famously had a Monday Night Football game with the Cincinnati Bengals where he did a similar skit. So that felt like that was such another loving thing back to him, of that they did this skit in front of the Reds game. I'm like, all right, so yeah, they're doing the Reds here because to me, I don't know if it was purposeful or not, but to me it was like, all right, yeah, Leslie did the Bengals, Liam is doing the Reds. And that was just great to kind of see that kind of throwback. And they had Leslie's last name on a jersey, and they paid a lot of respect to him, because he does play a part in the film in a couple different ways. We've seen the gag in the trailer and stuff where he goes to his dad's picture and he's saying, you know, hope you're proud of me, Daddy, and all that stuff.
So
and
funny.
A few other bits. But yeah, I laughed and I had such a good time. It's dumb humor. It's parody, it's spoof, it's over the top, it's ridiculous. There's 300,000 coffee cups being
so funny
brought in. There's some jokes that don't work, but I had so much fun with it that when something didn't work as well as you thought it was going to, or they thought it was going to, I still had a blast watching it. Like, it was just, this is one that if you're having a bad day or a bad week and you want something just to make you smile and laugh, you turn this on.
Yeah. Like, I can't stress that enough, just audibly cackling in this film. Like, I was having such a good time. And it's a short movie. It's less than an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's an hour and 25 minutes.
This is a very, very short movie, which we don't get a ton of it. But I love it because the pacing of it was just fantastic in this film. It never overstayed its welcome. It stayed on course for the plot that they were having for the film
with the plot
device, which is another funny bit from that. But they just, like you said, they just took so much care to make it like a love letter to these spoof comedy films that we don't really get too much of these days. And what I love most, and I think this is where I think I'm going to give it the most flowers as far as like its brilliance as a comedy, is it could have dated itself in the movie by alluding to a ton of current pop culture references, and they don't. Like, there's like a Black Eyed Peas reference in there at one point, which is not necessarily like, I don't love the Black Eyed Peas, but like, it's not a current reference, but it didn't date itself by trying to make a whole bunch of modern pop culture references in the film, which I think will help it last longer than they would if they tried to make a bunch of current references just to be hip with the time that it's in. Like, and I think that's absolutely brilliant writing on their part. I'm sure it was a conscious effort for them not to really make a ton of current references, and they didn't. And that scores huge points with me, because it's going to make the film last even longer, because you don't really have a ton of pop culture references in it that'll gonna date it like a year or two from now, and you're gonna go back and be like, oh yeah, I remember when that was a thing. They don't do that. It kind of lets the comedy work on itself, like without having to draw those references, and they just do such an amazing job at that.
Yeah, because the most modern thing they kind of reference is EV and electric cars, but they don't really go after. I mean, you know what they're making fun of, but they're not doing names and that, and like. Yeah, I'll say, I don't know if I've ever truly lived until I saw Liam Neeson do a fight scene set to Fergalicious. Like,
yeah, so good.
A little bit of spoiler there, but you're still going to have a blast with that. Like, that was just ridiculous. But he carried it so well because he committed so hard to doing what Leslie Nielsen did, is play it straight face, straight lace. So he's still being the kind of the grumpy action star guy that we're used to seeing, but he handled humor much better than expected. Like, there's ridiculous stuff where, and we've seen it in the trailers, he walks in and there's a note that says, "Pick me up," to a bloody knife, and he picks it up like, I picked up your knife for you, and I stepped in this red. Like, it's dumb humor. Don't get us wrong. This is stupid, dumb humor. But it was so entertaining. Pamela Anderson was great, seeing her back in there, especially in the Blues Club thing. Her secret was like, they both committed hard to doing, and you have to. When you're being this silly and over the top and ridiculous you have to commit. And that's what made Leslie Nielsen so great, is he committed to the bits. And it's known, if you know anything about him, he loves a good fart joke. He would take a little fart device with him on every interview. He's done it on Conan, and just everything he ever did, he had a fart device on him. He never went anywhere with it. And they paid tribute to that, which that wasn't the most, it was fun, but that was a kind of a tribute to him because he loved a good fart joke. So they took time out to make sure they honored him, not only the character he played, but the actor himself in it. And like I said, not everything works, but I didn't care because I was having so much fun. Like, everybody played their role so well, and you weren't sure if this type of spoof comedy would work well in this day and age, because we talk about it, so much stuff worked for the time period it was in. You're talking about the 80s and 90s when these movies came out, and you weren't sure if it was going to work that well, but because they did it as a love letter to that type of film, to the Naked Gun films, it worked so well for me.
Yeah, and I want to say two things. One, I'm glad that you're having a much better experience with this one than the movie you talked about last week, where we were on.
I said I can do dumb humor. I enjoyed this so much more than Happy Gilmore, which was kind of surprising.
We'll put a pin in that and go back to it. But two, I love all of the tropes that it takes that makes a lot of those good classic spoof comedies work. There's a very hysterical silhouette comedy scene in that film where, you know, they're being spied on by him, and there's some what looks to be very inappropriate things going on in the silhouette, and it's just so funny, so well done. You know what scenes I'm talking about, but I'm very much not going to go into detail on that here. Go see the film for yourself, but it's so funny, it's so smart, like, it just works, and I'm so glad that it did. And I gotta say, like, this movie was just a ton of fun, high rewatchability for me on this. I am going to watch this movie several times, and it's just, we've needed a comedy like this, I think, in a long time, because it's been a long time since we've really had one of these kind of parody spoof comedy films that really work. I mean, it's been maybe since the Scary Movie the early days of the Scary Movie
coming
franchise.
out next year for it.
Yeah, like it's been since like those like early aughts, still kind of doing that kind of thing and it working. And it's been a while since we've really had that, and I'm so glad, because there's very much an avenue for a film like this to be made now if they can do it right and hit the right tones and have the right jokes and have the right context to them. And this worked so brilliantly for me. And what I really love about this is people that I don't think would have enjoyed these are loving it. Are loving this movie. Like, I don't put any stock in like Rotten Tomato scores or anything. I thought for sure this film was going to get crucified in Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, this is a dumb comedy. Like, this is going to get crucified in Rotten Tomatoes. It's got like an 85, 86%.
It debuted at 100%.
Yeah, like but it's still sitting at like an 85, 86% or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes, which is insane, because these type of films very much tend to get skewered. But I think that goes to tell the right time, the right jokes, the right story. Like, everybody seems to be on board with really loving this film. Most everybody. Like, obviously there's always going to be people that don't like it for one reason or another, but the overwhelming majority of people have been very positive about this, and I love to see it.
These spoof parody films were huge through the 80s, 90s, and going into the early 2000s stuff, because we had the Naked Guns, we had the airplane films, we had Spaceballs, we had Hot Shots, which I still love to go back and revisit, but we had a lot of those spoof type of comedies and stuff. And yeah, after the Scary Movie, I can't think of anything past the Scary Movies in the last 20 years that have tried to really do that genre. And I think like I said, what works so well with this one is that there was care and attention to that genre, that it's got to be dumb and stupid, but it still tried to tell you a story, and it tried to take itself seriously. I mean, there's bits with the snowman that was just ridiculous, and one that made me laugh, and I don't know why it made me laugh as hard as it did, and this would be a little spoiler, but it's not a huge thing, is that Frank Drebin Jr. falls down some stairs.
Oh my God.
And then his mom calls him. And there's just something about a 70-year-old Liam Neeson falling downstairs and getting in an argument with his mom over the phone while he's trying to sneak into something like he's a teenager. Like, Mom, I'm busy. Like, just, it was hysterical to me that they just went with that sort of bit. Like, so he's trying to sneak in, but he falls downstairs and his mom calls. Like, it's that kind of stuff. It's going back to the well of those type of bits, but it does it in such an entertaining way because they committed so hard to it. Like, every actor in here committed. Even there's a running gag about the chief of police's husband, and they just commit so hard to that bit that it's just... It needed that level of commit. If they didn't commit,
it wouldn't have worked.
The actors and everybody didn't commit as hard as they did. Yeah, it wouldn't have worked as well as it did.
And they did, and they gave everything they had to this. And I think that's what makes it so good. I wonder if they're going to follow up on it or not, because there's been some rumblings that they may do a second one, and I kind of hope that they do, man, because they it's so rare that I really clamor hard for a sequel, but I had such a good time with this that I can't see them not going back to this well, because I think it's doing pretty well. I think it's on pace. Like, I don't think it's going to knock off Fantastic Four this weekend, but it's right up there in like the top 2 or 3, along with the movie we're getting ready to review here in a minute. But like, it's done fairly well. Like, I know the audience for this is most likely going to skew toward the older side, which I think was the case.
Everyone born back in the 1900s.
Yeah, if you have a 19 on your driver's license, you're probably going to love this movie. But like, it still works. Like, I think it even works for younger audiences as well. It's just so silly and funny. And this is one of those, just go turn your brain off and have a good time. Like, just go laugh. There's nothing like overly offensive in this movie at all.
There's one sequence that could be the shadow silhouettes.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Like other types of offensive. Yeah. You know what I mean? That
everyone takes offense to everything nowadays.
Right, so. And this is one that, but it's not like offensive like that. You know what I mean? Like, and you see it and you'll know what I mean. But yeah, go check out this film. I loved it so much. I had a really good time.
Yeah, there were a few bits that of course, they needed to get people hyped up to see the Naked Gunning, and I wish, especially like the OJ one, would have been in the movie and not in all of the advertisements, because it would have probably been a lot funnier if we saw it for the first time in the film.
Movie, yeah.
But because they did some other things where, like, just for the price of a movie ticket, you can save comedy. Yeah. And they did those, which was really brilliant marketing and advertising and stuff for it. But they did show some of the crazier bits in the trailers, which you've got to show some stuff. But I do wish, like, at least the OJ bit would have been in the movie in there. But it had so many fun jokes. It was just, as I said, it's one, if you're having a bad day or a bad week or something, it's a perfect movie to get you to smile and laugh and just forget about your troubles for an hour and a half, because it was just that fun. Like, that's why I got out of this, and like it still made me feel bad that I disliked Happy Gilmore 2 as much as I like, because it's not a spoof comedy. It's kind of near that genre. Yeah. But it's a dumb comedy type of movie, but I loved The Naked Gun so much more than that, and it was just so much fun. We did have a pretty good mix of people in the theater, from 60, 70-year-olds to teenagers in there, and it sounded like everybody in our screening had a blast with it.
Yeah, and I can't remember there being that much heavy laughter in a movie like that in a while. It's been a long time for sure. But in the end, The Naked Gun is just a love letter to the old school slapstick spoof comedy films. I'm more than happy to give him his flowers. Seth MacFarlane did an absolutely brilliant job of putting this together. Everybody committed so hard to making this film work, and it just does. I'm gonna give the film an 8 out of 10, purely based on the high rewatchability, the way the jokes land, the pacing of the comedies. Like, the pacing of the jokes works, the pacing of the film works. It doesn't overstay its welcome. The jokes are hilarious, most of them, and it's just a good time had in the theater, and for that reason, I have to give it an 8 out of 10, and it's one that I'll go back to the well and watch. It's going to be in my rotation of films that I watch on repeat for sure.
Yeah, this is so much fun. I'm a huge fan of Leslie Nielsen. I loved Airplane, The Naked Gun, and just pretty much everything he did, because he perfected that serious, deadpan, slapstick comedy. And Liam Neeson, he held his own. He did well. Like, we're used to him being in drama and action stuff. He's done a few comedies, but he held his own so well. Pamela Anderson coming back to do a comedy like this again, she held so well. But like you said, everybody committed so hard. It's ridiculous, it's over the top, it's ludicrous, but it's one that it's supposed to be, and you have so much fun. And I'm giving it an 8 as well. Like, it's not going to match up to other films that are 8, 8.5, 9s with story and all that stuff, but it's because it was such a love letter. It was so entertaining, it was so funny, they committed so hard to it. It deserves that rating because it was that entertaining. Like, I can't think of a film that I've seen in theaters for comedy wise that I've enjoyed as much as this one in a very long time. And I do want to say, make sure to stay during the credits, because there's multiple gags to do. There's an extra little scene, which was okay, but there's another tribute to the original Naked Gun in there with the credit scroll and the police vehicle. But look at the names of the credits, because there's ridiculous. There's one, which I'll spoil just so you know the type of ridiculous in there. They're like, set dresser, and then there was, dresser for Liam and all that, and it said dressings, ranch, Italian. It's that ridiculous stuff that they did. But you also get Liam Neeson singing a song.
Hilarious.
In there too, and it's hysterical. There's so many different bits that are being done in that song and stuff too, and it just feels like a guy who's in his 70s, who's done mostly action stuff. It felt like he had a ball doing this film. Yeah. That song just felt like he was a little kid again.
Yeah, it was so good to see him in a role like this, and I'd love to see them follow up on this, which I don't always clamor for coming out of films, but man, I'd love to see him try to capture this again. It was such an absolute blast. The Naked Gun is in theaters now. Go check it out. If you need a laugh, this has got so many over-the-top funny jokes in it that hit, and it's probably the best time I've had at a comedy in years in the theaters, and just go check it out and just laugh hysterically and kind of forget about all the craziness going on in the world and just go have a good time. This, as much as we love a good action film and the big budget films and the cinemas and, the spectacle of it all, there's always going to be a place in my heart for a well-done comedy in the theater, going and seeing it, just laughing hysterically as well. And this is one of the best representatives of that I've seen in a long time in the theaters. Go check it out. Go laugh. Come to our Discord. Let us know what you think about it. Put your comments on the YouTube video. If you haven't followed us already, what are you doing? Follow us now if you're listening in the audio realm.
Now.
But come let us know what you think about it, and I'd love to have that conversation for sure.
Yeah, really looking forward to rewatching to see if there's references and gags that I didn't get. Like, what movie did this come from, or what actor, or what did this come from, like that. And then go back through the credits again and see all the stuff. It was just pure fun. It's just pure enjoyment. We haven't had something that's been that enjoyable. I'm hoping like Spaceballs 2 is going to have that same level of care and attention with bringing that spoof comedy back, along with the Scary Movie 376 that's about to come out. But I think it's like 7, but they had quite a run to it. But it's going to be interesting to see if this does kick off some more of the spoof comedies being able to come back, because you're talking about studios struggling with the budgets of stuff. If they can crank out more of these spoof fun comedies that don't cost a lot of money to make, then we could see a resurgence of them coming back.
I certainly hope so, man. I love a good comedy. If you go back in our archives and talk about some of our favorite movies of all time, I do enjoy like a big epic fantasy story, but man, a lot of my favorite movies are also comedies too. Like I just love to laugh at silly, absurd things in movies. And this is right up there with some of the best I've seen in a long time. So I'm happy that we went and checked this one out for sure.
Absolutely. So moving us on to our second film review of this show, we have The Bad Guys 2. So this was kind of a surprise hit. The first one when it came out, it was a little bit different. It's skewing a little bit older, but also younger at the same time, because you have, which I never expected him to be doing an animated kind of kids cartoon, Sam Rockwell being Mr. Wolf in there. But, from the first film, they were the bad guys. They were robbing banks and doing all this. And by the end, they had decided that they were going to go good because it felt good and everything else. So this one kicks off a little bit later that they are still sticking to that. They're trying to be the good guys, but they're struggling. Nobody wants to hire them because they know their past. Like Mr. Wolf goes to get a job at the bank. Like, you robbed us 3 times.
That was this bank?
Yeah, that was this bank? But they're struggling to be the good guys because no one wants to give them their fair chance. And then they get set up from a new group of bandits. And you have that's led by Kitty Cat, that is voiced by Danielle Brooks, who's been she's in Peacemaker, and she did Orange is the New Black. She's a great actress, and it was kind of fun to have her in this and stuff too. And you got Awkwafina came back as Tarantula. You have Anthony Ramos as Mr. Piranha. You've got a pretty solid voice cast. You've got Natasha Lyonne was added in here as well. But it was fun. It was a fun little movie. Like it doesn't have. It's kind of really interesting to have kind of 2 comedies back to back in different styles, because I could say I had a lot more comedic fun with The Naked Gun than this one, but it still had some enjoyment jokes. Like some stuff they're beating you over the head with gags that they did from the first one. But overall, it was a fun little story of trying to see if they're going to go back to being bad. Are they truly still good? Are they doing the right thing? How do people react to them? But it's also a bit over the top and a bit crazy, and not everything works in it, but I still had a good time, and my kids had a good time with it.
Yeah, and I think it's working for the target audience that it had. I struggled a little bit with this movie, only because, for whatever reason, the story didn't captivate me. Like, it didn't.
I can see that.
It had a hard time keeping my attention during it. Like, it's not a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's honestly one that if you tried to ask me to recall the plot of this movie in 3 months, I might struggle to do so. Mm-hmm. Like, because there's not a ton of memorable stuff in here. There's a few, like, jokey type things that kind of hit for a lot of it, but I think you got a lot of the movie from the trailer in this case. Yeah, like, there wasn't a ton of things that the trailer left out that you really got in the movie from this, and that is a little bit disappointing for me. But overall, it's still a solid movie. Like, I like the story that they were telling of can they truly be good guys if nobody's giving them a chance, and would it be easy to fall back on old habits? And they're working really hard and really over the top way to convince people that they're actually good. And that's kind of the central plot of the whole movie. And, it was fine for what it was. Like, it does a solid enough job of telling a decent story. And, you know, at the end, that's all I can really ask for from a sequel to something that's already been done and done so well. But yeah, I really felt like this was more of a 1B than a brand new, fresh sequel story necessarily for me. But not a bad movie by any means. It's just one that I was just like, okay, they kind of did it, and I watched it, and I don't know if I'd go back to it or not. Like, and that's kind of where I feel about it. Which, you know, I mean, good for them. It's going to do well, but we'll see. We'll see how audiences react to it. Sure.
Even though I liked it, I agree with you. The story was a little bit weaker because of what you're doing, and you're trying to. I think a lot of it is because it's trying to make so many references to the past, as it goes back to their flashback to their first job, and bring back the villain from the first movie for some parts and stuff, and then it doesn't give a. It tries to paint a picture that they're struggling and stuff, but you don't spend that long with like exactly what they're all trying to do. Like you're getting some progress, but they do kind of feel the same as they did when we left the last one. And it does get ridiculous with the story towards the end, especially as it gets into the heart of what the actual plot that Kitty Cat and her gang are going after. It gets into the really ludicrous. I mean, we're talking about animals who can drive and pull off jobs and stuff too, but it gets even more ludicrous than that when it gets to dealing with space, as we've seen that in the trailers and everything. So it kind of lost me a little bit at the end there because it did go so like just big and over the top, and it didn't fully nail that. And like I said, a lot of the comedy felt like it was rehashes of stuff they did in the first movie that I've watched several times with my kids now, which, you know, they've enjoyed both. And again, you hear me talk about all the time when it comes to these type of films. That's what really matters. You can have us old crotchety guys talking about a kid's animated film and not liking it and stuff like that, but it's made for the kids, because I think we've been spoiled a little bit by the Pixars and others that have given us
even DreamWorks
movies and DreamWorks that you can enjoy as adults and kids, and not everything has to be that way. And I think this tries to be like in between of well, giving stuff and innuendo jokes and other stuff like that adults can enjoy, but also keeping it to kids. There was one really strange, like I've talked about it before, I'm not a prude when it comes to language and stuff, but it did have one moment where there was one slight bit of cursing, and it just caught us off guard. Like, okay, it got a reaction out of us, but this is a PG movie made for kids. Did we really? Because they didn't really do any other language like that in the rest of the film. So that was just like, did you really need to do a shock value type of bit there? Is that fully necessary to do in it? Like, it's okay, but if you're looking at taking young kids, know that there is one curse word line in there that can be a little shocking, but it didn't ruin the movie at all. It was just that odd that the rest of the movie there wasn't something like that. It was just a weird choice to do that shock value.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely not the target demographic for this movie by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, even with, you know, Universal, like, really put this together. It's one of their more popular entities based on how well the last film did, but it's kind of lower on the ranking for me as far as like just overall quality of the movie. And it's just, I don't know why it just didn't resonate with me very much at all. Like, I hate to say it, I almost found myself falling asleep at one point. Like, it kind of didn't really grab my attention. And that's not a knock on anybody that put work into this film or anything. It's just, I know I wasn't the target demo for this. Mm-hmm. And I really struggled to connect with any of the characters really in any of the story, because I may have seen the bad guys once or twice maybe, and then I hadn't revisited it since. And it's one that I can appreciate a little bit. The callbacks to the previous one was like, oh yeah, okay, I remember that they did this and that. And that helped kind of recalibrate me watching it, but I'm not going to have that much of it's not going to sit with me like some of the other films we've been able to see. And that's a little disappointing there, but like I said, I'm not the target demographic for this movie, so I'm glad that your kids had a good time watching it. That's who should be enjoying these movies. Not to say that we can't, because, you know, we love our animated films as well, but like it's one that it's going to be kind of forgettable for me, and I don't know how much more I can like emphasize that, because like I said, it's not the plot's not bad. it's fine. It just didn't stick with me for whatever reason.
I can see and I can agree with that. Like I'm not a huge fan of the Bad Guys series. I enjoyed the first one enough. I enjoyed this one enough, but it's not something to me looking at like the Shreks or something like that that's coming out. Like, it doesn't have the memorable sticking power. I couldn't tell you lines that are really going to stick from that. And yeah, because it is kind of that weird that it's trying to be a little more grown up, but it's still got fart jokes and it's got ridiculous jokes like that and over the topness to it and stuff. Like it's one of those that it's got a lot of popularity, but it doesn't feel like it's a franchise, like a new franchise. I was kind of surprised when I saw they were doing a sequel because I thought that one was going to be like, all right, this is a one-off that it's okay. But I didn't think it was going to spawn and become a new franchise for them. So it was a little surprising to see them come back to it. Yeah. And like I said, it was surprising to see Sam Rockwell doing an animated kids movie like that as well, because he's such a kind of distinguished actor. He's done silly stuff as well, but he's a guy who's renowned for his physical acting and everything else. And he works well as the wolf. Like, all the voice actors work well for the characters. The animation looks great. It's a really beautiful animation style that they've done and stuff with. But I do agree with Bad Guys and Bad Guys 2. The story and kind of what happens in it is a little forgettable, especially when this one has because I'm such a big space guy and stuff as well. Like, that was a ludicrous, ridiculous, over-the-top kind of finale to it, which can be a lot of fun for the kids. But adults can be looking at like, okay, that's just like a really, really ridiculous type of ending. And then it's clearly setting up for more. Like, if you stick around to the very end and everything, it's clearly setting up that they're potentially 2 to 3. There was a credit scene in there as well. So the very end of the movie plus the credit scene means we could have multiple different Bad Guys stuff happening but the credit scene was weird, which I don't want to spoil, but it sets up that there's even a stranger, deeper, more out there type of story that might be connected to it. Like, it's hard to talk about without spoiling. I don't want to spoil it, but it was kind of strange that they kind of set up something that's completely out of left field from what this story kind of is. So yeah, it was enjoyable, but it's to me not one of the new great big franchises like we had with Shrek's Run, and we've had even with Puss in Boots getting the spinoffs and all these other new animated series and shows that we've got. I don't think it has the strength as the others, but it's doing enough to warrant more films. But it is one of those where, like, I chuckled, but I can't remember a moment I really laughed. Sure. I just chuckled quite a bit.
Yeah, and I'm using it as a comparison for, like, the aesthetic and the type of characters from one franchise to the other. I feel completely different about the follow-up to Zootopia than I do the Bad Guys. Like, I'm very much looking forward to Zootopia 2. I love the first one. Like, the first one's fantastic. Like, if I'm comparing the two, I'm leaning more in the Zootopia camp than I am the Bad Guys camp, which, could be my own personal preferences or whatever, but I'm more leaning into looking forward to what they have to offer for that, which we'll get to review later this year, than this one that they went back to the well. I was surprised they went back to the well too. And I think I'm even more surprised when they try to set up even more stuff. Like, they're really making this like a bigger franchise. Like, they have more plans for this to do well. We'll see how financially well it does, because I don't think it's going to be number one this week. I think Fantastic Four is sticking around for another week on top at least, but we'll see what it does after that, because there's a little bit of a box office lull, not necessarily a quality of film lull in the coming weeks. There's a film coming up next week that we're going to do or two of them that I think are going to be really interesting to see where they land financially too, just kind of in this coming out of the summer blockbuster season into like an early fall type thing, where we'll see how some of these movies do. But I don't know what kind of staying power this one's going to have, especially when you got other family friendly type movies coming down the pipeline soon.
Yeah, this might have been one to do more in the fall or winter, and because, I mean, you're coming out right after Superman and Fantastic Four and Jurassic World, which, again, Jurassic World is meant for the teens to older, but this one has the Bad Guys and Bad Guys 2 both have had kind of a weird weird feeling of what exactly age range is it meant for. Because I mean, it's got the fart and silly gags, but it's got some stuff that might skew more to the teenagers, but it doesn't feel like it goes quite as, like, I don't see that many teenagers liking the bad guy stuff as much. It's still more for the younger, but it's got a more like grown-up tone to, because I mean, you're dealing with, hey, we were bad guys, we got arrested, we're trying to be good now, we're trying to get jobs. I mean, that's not exactly something that's going to appeal to your 6-year-old at times, but it's like, it's kind of that weird feeling of exactly what age range that it's kind of meant for, because the adults can enjoy having like someone like Sam Rockwell doing a voice in there, and you've got, they're dealing with almost Ocean's 11 type of missions in this one, where you got the sleight of hand and things changing and all that, which is going to skew a little bit older as well. So it did have kind of an odd tone to it. It was enjoyable, but I feel like, even though we talked about the love letter with the Naked Gun and how well it did with kind of redoing bits there, this one felt like it, kind of like with Happy Gilmore 2 for me, that it was kind of going back to the well, like, hey, we did this on the first one, let's do a bunch more fart jokes. Let's do this because we did it in the first one. Let's do this because we did it in the first one. Like, it was just kind of referencing itself a lot, to where it didn't establish kind of a new identity until the very end, where we're setting these characters up for something completely different than they've done in the first two.
Yeah. And we'll see what they do when they move a little further along into the next stories and where they go with it. But man, I don't know, man. I really struggled to connect with this one. It's a film honestly, I don't know if I'll go back and watch it again. And that affects how I view, it affects my ratings. It affects how I feel about a film. Like, if I want to go back and see it again, it's going to always score higher for me. But for this one, man, it was just, I think it struggled so much with its own identity at times that, like, I don't know if I'm overthinking it or what, but man, it was just, my experience with that, it just didn't sit well with me at all. And I'm genuinely surprised that it's going to more movies potentially, but like I said, I'm not the target demographic for this. So if people got enjoyment out of it, I'm more power to you. I hope you loved it, and I hope you went and had a great time at the theaters. If you see it, if you have kids, take them. They'll probably enjoy it. It just wasn't a film for me.
Yeah, so The Bad Guys 2 was a decent enough sequel. It does kind of have a tone and identity issue, exactly what kind of age range and people it's for. My kids loved it and enjoyed it. That always, I give a little extra boost when I'm reviewing something that's meant for kids and families, because as we mentioned, we're not exactly the main demographic for this, even though there are some jokes and things that are done for the older crowd. It doesn't work as well as like Pixar has mixed that kind of stuff in. I'm going to give it a 7. That does include a little boost from, my kids' enjoyment of it. It's not a bad movie. It's well animated. It's well voice acted. It had great sound and stuff to it. The story is a little forgettable. It's fun, but there wasn't a lot of, like, even through the whole theater, there wasn't a whole lot of heavy laughing or anything that really stuck out as being fully memorable. Like, there's some good animated sequences towards the end, but it gets really ludicrous and kind of over the top. And yeah, it ends with setting up this series into almost a pretty much new direction and stuff. So it feels like we're going to get more, but it was just okay.
Yeah, I'm going to lean into giving it a 6. Like I said, it's not a bad movie by any means. It's just, I struggled to connect with the characters and, the story that they were telling. The story was fine. It's a pretty cohesive plot all the way through, which gives it a little bit of a boost for me, but the humor didn't hit for me in this one. It felt like, it just felt like I missed the boat on this. Like, it could have been the mood I was in. Saw this at the end of a stressful week, which sometimes goes into playing. We've talked about it, like how our moods could, affect our viewing of this. And I had dealt with a pretty stressful week myself, but I just didn't find myself coming off truth be told, for me, I saw Naked Gun on Thursday. I saw Bad Guys 2 on Friday. So I saw them on back-to-back days, and riding the high that I was feeling coming out of the Naked Gun going into seeing this, like, I really struggled to connect with this one. And I don't know if it was trying to, in my brain, compare the two, which is not a fair comparison at all to make, but this is just a group of characters in a story that just didn't connect with me in a lot of ways, and I genuinely don't know if I'll go back and watch it a second time. I may give it a second chance just to see if I feel a little bit different, because I'm willing to do that, like, see if under different circumstances, maybe I'll like the film a little bit more, but this franchise just doesn't feel like it's connected with me, and I don't have a strong like emotional connection to it. So I'm gonna give it a solid 6. It's a solid film for what it is. It's just not one I'd go back to the well to again.
Like I said, it's one my kids have enjoyed, both of them. They were really excited to see it and they enjoyed it. But this isn't one like when you think of a franchise for an animated film. When I talked about K-pop earlier, that my daughters want all the merchandise and stuff. I don't know if I've ever seen like merchandise or stuffed animals or something for the bad guys or the bad guys too. I don't see like a lot of kids flocking to get these characters to have at home, to have stuff of them at home. It is kind of an odd franchise to me. Like it wasn't a bad one-off movie, but I didn't know if it really needed to like continue on into this. And now you've got potentially a third or fourth film, a spin-off film, and maybe a third film coming out that I never saw it as a franchise. It looked like it was just going to be one of those one-off films, and then they move on from it. But it's done well enough that they've gone back to it. But yeah, I agree with you with the most part. It is one that I've, as a dad and as an adult, have had like, it's okay, and I can be entertained by it. But it's not something like, if you gave me a choice of things to watch, it wouldn't be high on my list to kind of revisit. And for my kids, it's on their list to watch, but I don't think it's something that they would choose other stuff to watch more than that, because they've gone back and they've rewatched so many things. I said K-pop is played so many times in our house, and all the Disney and Pixar stuff, and even Shreks and all that. But this one we've watched a couple times, but the first one, but it has not had as much play as any other like animated film that has come out in the last 10 years or more. And I don't see Bad Guys 2 being a huge replayed one in our household either. Not because of my dislike. I enjoyed it enough. I don't think it's gripping the audience as much. That's why it kind of did feel like an odd sequel that was their demand to revisit the Bad Guys.
Right. And, that's a decision for the studio to make. Will we get a third one? Time will tell. Come to our, like we said before, come to our Discord. Tell us if you've seen the movie and you think we're completely missing the mark on this. Please let us know. Like, we'd love to have that conversation with you. Obviously, come to our YouTube page once again. Like and subscribe, please. Like, go and let us know what you think about this film if you've gone and seen it, and maybe try to sway your mind if you think we're being a little too critical of this. Like I said, we recognize that we're not the target audience for this, so it's going to skew our opinion on it just a little bit. But like I said earlier, I'm comparing it just based on like the fact that it's an animated feature featuring animals and trying to use humor and telling you. I'm comparing it to a film like Zootopia, which is getting a sequel as well, that I feel much more connected to that film than I do this one. So I don't feel like I'm being too unfair about it, trying to compare the two, because if Zootopia is not as good, I'll be just as critical about it, because I am very much looking forward to that one. Whereas with this one, I was like, we'll see what we get here, but who knows? Are they going to continue on with this franchise? We'll see how successful it is, but we'll see if we get any more films at all.
Yeah, The Bad Guys 2 is in theaters right now. Go check it out with your kids or by yourself. If you had any interest in it, go check it out and form your own opinion on it. Like, we're telling you what we feel. Like, we're trying to look at it from all aspects and try to leave personal bias and other stuff aside and look at it. But you're going to have, whether it's your emotional stage or how old you are, the demographic that is going to affect it. So if you had any feelings about this that you wanted to check it out, go take your kids, go see it. I know my kids had a lot of fun with it. So if you want to have fun with your kids, they're probably going to enjoy it, because, as adults, we can be a little more critical on the humor and the story and everything else. But yeah, it's kind of really interesting between what we had this week, because of Naked Gun. We had reservations because the originals were so good. Did we need to try to bring it back? Does spoof movies and parody movies work in this day and age with the internet age and how everything is? And that works so well. While at the same time, Bad Guys was just kind of okay. Like Bad Guys 2, like we just didn't. And maybe it was because we had so much fun with the Naked Gun that it jaded us a little bit, that this animated film, it was fun, but I'd rather go over in another theater and watch Naked Gun again because I laughed so much. But that's not meant for kids. Like, most of the movie in the Naked Gun could be watched by kids, but there is a few sequences like they do a little bit more of the deeper adult humor with the snowman or with the silhouette looking and stuff like that. But Naked Gun is definitely my top choice of the week because I just had so much fun with it. Like I had low expectations going in because I wasn't sure if it was going to work. In this day and age with Liam Neeson, like we got the gags from the trailers. We were seeing him in the schoolgirl uniform, and you're getting the other bits. And like, well, is that gonna be it? Because we got the second trailer, and I felt a little more off about it. Like, all right, well, they're doing the he's got to use the bathroom jokes, and they're doing this. And the second trailer wasn't as strong as the first one was to introduce it. But it ended up being such a great time.
Yeah, we had an absolute blast watching that for sure. It's definitely my preferred movie of the week, and may wind up on my pictures of the year list as well. I just had so much fun laughing hysterically at this that was very much needed for me personally, but also just finally we got a really good comedy, like throwback to the old comedies that you and I both grew up loving so much, and this was a perfect modern day spoof comedy movie for us that I just had so much fun with.
Yeah, that's what I was back and forth. Like Happy Gilmore 2 was supposed to be absurd and over the top and a dumb comedy, but I just feel like the Naked Gun excelled so much better in doing that. I'm not trying to put Happy Gilmore 2 down, but I feel like because that was all about gag, throwback, actually show you scenes from the first one. And this had a lot of throwbacks, but it allowed it to be its own thing and its own version of it and make it new and fresh and interesting with how they did stuff. And I just really enjoyed how they made it feel like a classic 80s, 90s spoof parody comedy. While being its own thing. Like you had 3 Naked Gun movies before, you're paying tribute to that in here, but they did it in such, even some of the stuff, like I said, it doesn't always work, but because there was stuff with an owl that was just like, okay.
You're like, all right, let's wrap this up.
Like we're not saying it's dumb, it's ridiculous over the top, but it's done in such a great way that you can have just so much fun with it.
Yeah, it was well worth it. Go check that out, have a good laugh, and have some fun in the theaters. It's way overdue. We need more fun things in our life, and I'm glad we got that one this week.
Yeah, but that's going to do it for this week. We had some fun with these films. Hopefully you enjoyed them. You know, one a little bit more than the other. But coming next week, we have a very interesting week coming up because we've been hearing so much about this film that we've even heard like you're not prepared or ready for what it's going to show you, and that's a horror film, Weapons. That being a dad, it is kind of hard for me. Even before being a dad, it's kind of hard for me to watch horror that involves children and stuff, and this is doing it in spades. So it's going to be really interesting to see that this has got huge buzz behind it. It debuted at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes as well, but this is going to be a really interesting one. It's been kind of quoted and talked about as being maybe not only just the best horror film of this year, but one of the best horror films ever made. So there's a lot kind of moving into this, even though that buzz it's quiet, but it's loud. It's been kind of strange, but every time I've seen a trailer for it, I've been like, okay, can't wait. This is wild.
I'm so excited for this one. The director of Weapons made Barbarian, which is one of the weirdest, wildest, like horror movies of the last 10 years or so, and I'm excited to see this follow up. The trailer looks insane. I'm very much looking forward to talking about this film for sure.
And then we're taking a look at a film that's going to fit right in with Weapons, and that's Freakier Friday. So going back to the well and revisiting the Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, family comedy. My kids begged to watch the first one after seeing the trailer because they're like, do you all want to go see it? Yeah. I'm like, well, let's watch the first one so you kind of know what it's about and see what it was for back in our day. And because it feels like it wasn't that long ago, even though it came out in the early 2000s, I felt like this came out in the mid 90s instead of the early 2000s. But we'll be checking both of those films out and seeing, maybe after seeing Weapons, we need something like Freakier Friday to cheer us back up after seeing a horror film like that.
Yeah, the dynamics between the two are insane, but I like when we have two diametrically opposed movies like that to talk about. It's all about balance, and I'm excited to check both of those out and talk about them for sure.
But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio realm on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.